And first we will we'll sit together. For anybody who may be new to the sitting group, it's divided roughly into thirds. We sit together, we meditate, we prioritize being quiet with ourselves and looking into our hearts. And then we have some teaching, and then some chance for dialogue and conversation with each other. And then after the end of this time, 12:30 in California, 9:30 here, I guess 3:30 on the East Coast. There are breakout groups, a chance for you to talk with others, small group of four people or maybe five, about and just reflections about your practice. So I do a little bit of guidance at the beginning of the sit, and prefer mostly to sit in silence with you. We're here together, sitting together. So the silence is really, we're not alone. We're really sitting alone together. So let's sit, let's lie, let's stand, whatever posture is comfortable and relaxing for your body. I'm going to get a cushion. I'll be right back. So we begin by taking a deep breath in, intentionally breathing in the aliveness of this moment, and then relaxing. And once again, breathing in the aliveness of this moment, and relaxing. And you can imagine breathing in this nourishing breath, and then just breathing out any tension that you can feel in the body. And bringing mindfulness, attentive awareness to just how it is for you right now. Letting the attention drop gently from the head into the body. Knowing where your feet are. Just sensing and feeling whatever sensations are happening. And it can be deeply soothing to bring attention to the sensations associated with the movement, the activity of breathing. The rise and fall of the diaphragm, that muscle right under your chest. And softening the belly. And just feeling the expansion, contraction of the lungs, the rib cage as you breathe in and out. Allowing each breath in to fill and absorb into the body, the whole body breathing. And very gently release that breath. And shifting the attention back to being here now. And just sensing the subtle pleasure of relaxing into just this moment. Just this breath. Just this feeling in the body. Just this. And whenever there's lots of thinking going on, you can always move the body, just shifting slightly back, just maybe even just an inch into receiving the moment instead of leaning forward with our various agendas. Think about this, do that. Just stepping back with your whole body, just moving slightly back into the heart of your own being, just being here. Oops. I don't know how much of anything I said you heard. I don't know how long I was muted, but I hope you had a good meditation together. And um, yeah, I apologize for any mistake. Yeah, not in my usual spot. So, welcome again to everybody. And as I mentioned today, I want to speak to you about the way mindfulness and devotion kind of intersect. And the thing that brought that up for me is my retreat at Ram Dass's house, where there's a mixture of different world wisdom traditions, I would say, and recognizing the essential similarities that exist between all the world's spiritual traditions. In that house, there's batiks of Hindu gods. The temple is the central spirit of the temple is Hanumanji, the beautiful embodiment of service. I spoke about it a little bit last week. And Ram Dass did lots of Buddhist practice. So there's also Buddha, and there's a beautiful painting that is the bread and the wine of communion. And so there's basically a lot of intersection between the traditions, but the two that can seem most opposite are the simple practice of mindfulness, of clarity, of attentive awareness, and these bhakti devotional practices of chanting and worship. And of course, the worship, even in Hinduism, it's with a personalized deity from your own personal heart. And that's the understanding, but it definitely looks like, from the outside, a certain kind of worship of things. And sometimes you can feel, oh my gosh, mindfulness is so dry, and these practices are so juicy, singing and harmonium music, and it really is nice. And so I began to reflect, especially after the talking for the last couple weeks about the 5 spiritual faculties. I started to reflect, these faculties, just to remind you, or those of you who weren't here last week, they are faith or confidence, energy, or active, like determination, mindfulness, concentration, and discerning wisdom. And when I hear those, they don't sound that juicy or loving or luscious, or they sound like clarity. Maybe faith has that, but faith includes that heart piece that we could call devotion. Last week, I spoke about it in terms of confidence, having the confidence that you can do this, having the confidence that you can wake up, having the confidence that there is nothing fundamentally wrong with you. This is a kind of trust or faith. And rather than going through them all, I'm just saying that I looked at them and it seemed almost like kind of a dry list until we bring our own meaning to them, like confidence in ourselves, yes, in our capacity to wake up, but also confidence in the higher values, the deepest aspirations of your heart, that they are usually oriented toward the good. I remember, and I've reminded you, when we set intentions in the new year, everybody's intentions were to be more loving or to be more kind, or just along those lines. Very beautiful. And anyway, so the way that I feel mindfulness and devotion intersect is that when we're being mindfulness, that is bringing that attentive awareness to experience, we're showing up, we're choosing to be present, we're giving ourselves, in that sense, to the moment. what's the biggest thing we have to give, right? Is our attention, our energy, our focus. We're giving ourselves to this moment of life and to the intention, if not always the reality, of being as present as we can be in each moment of life. Laura, you're not muted. And so when we're being mindful too, there's a sense of following what's happening, being with it, tracking, following, sustaining awareness. And that to me, has within it a certain kind of meaning. We value this moment of life. We value life in the form of you, of me, of each one of us, of what's happening, the truth of this moment. We value this. We don't want to miss it. We want to be close to it. We want to, hopefully, the ideal is to love and accept it, or maybe accept and love it. And mindfulness also it's a truthfulness. It's telling the truth of what we see. It's a form of honesty. And it's seeing what's so without, this is the tricky part, of course, but without blame or judgment. And that's an ongoing effort, isn't it? To see what's happening without blame or judgment. And this too, to me, this links to it links to devotion. It links to being devoted to what's true. It links to preferring information over misinformation. It links to the respect, that the innate respect for life, for each other, and for this consciousness, this gift, this miracle of awareness, of consciousness that everybody has. Just like everybody has some measure of confidence and some measure of energy. You get up in the morning, you're here, you're dressed, maybe you even took a shower. So, there's enough energy in our everyday life, ordinary awareness and attentiveness to things, the ability to focus a little bit, and to understand right from wrong, for example. These are common qualities, and they become the 5 spiritual faculties when we direct them toward awakening, toward presence, toward love and devotion and respect for this life and all the beings, all the sentient beings in it. We create this sacred space together every Sunday morning. You come, you show up, we listen to teachings, we practice, and this sacred space is what nourishes the ability to discern what's true, which gets harder and harder for people these days in all of the distress of what's going on in the world. It gets harder to know what's actually true when there's so much propaganda on both sides, circulating, flowing into our brains. Anyway, when these 5 faculties are harnessed and directed toward presence, toward awakening, toward showing up with a little bit of kindness for the moments of our life, this is the intersection of mindfulness and love, of mindfulness and devotion, of mindfulness and, we can call it worship or just respect. I don't know if I want to show you. This is the meditation space. Oh, hang on one second. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Thank you. Now I completely lost my own train of thought where I was. And when we're practicing with these 5 faculties, they come in pairs, and you balance them. You try to look and see, which one. And here are the pairs, and here's what they are. And this is what, during the long meditation retreats in the Vipassana tradition, this is how the teachers would usually teach. they would teach you to balance. For example, the pair, you balance faith and wisdom, because you balance a kind of opening and trusting and devotion with intelligent understanding, with rationality. So you're not falling into, blind faith or too cerebral and disconnected modalities. And then you balance, the other pair is energy and concentration. And when you've got too much energy, whoa, you can't concentrate at all. And when there's too much concentration, you can sink into sort of a torporous state where time, hours can go by. I mean, this is in long retreat and you're not even aware of anything. So you balance that, that active, the energy part with calm abiding, with just recollecting, I'm here, I'm meditating, I'm present with whatever I'm doing. You balance those. And then mindfulness, the fifth one, looks over these pairs and makes sure that they're not out of balance or extreme. And we're always falling out of balance on one side or the other. But it's the mindfulness that can help us be aware of that and actually protect our minds, protect our hearts from extremes. And this brings true freedom, the freedom of inner confidence, the freedom of inner harmony and balance. Is a great freedom. As many of you know, I've been grieving the sudden death of my younger brother, a man who had some special needs and had created after, he was 74 when he died suddenly of a heart attack. And yeah, so when he was in his early 60s, he had a pretty hard life. And I talked about it last week, but he followed his heart. He opened his awareness and looked around a wider world than the world he was inhabiting. And he found a way to follow his heart, to really take a leap of faith and move to a place where, thanks to different community values and more acceptance, he thrived. Eventually he healed himself, and I feel that when he passed away, he had these spiritual faculties quite in balance. He had created, and we each need to do this, he had created the life circumstances for himself where he needed a lot of solitude and a lot of privacy, and within creating that sacred space where he could flourish, where he could thrive. I feel these faculties, were very balanced, and he was a very spiritual man. So they were definitely, pointed in the direction of understanding. He would say God, we might say spirit, we might say intelligence of the universe, Buddha nature, lots of different ways to name the spiritual force in which that we can sense and feel when we're being really present with our own being. We sense and feel that it's bigger than just myself. It's bigger than yourself. And so balancing these in whatever we do is what we do. And I found this quote that I really love from Seneca. It says, and this is a quote, this is actually in relation to devotion. I just want to unpack for a moment before I read it to you, which is, if we understand having access to the qualities of love, of respect, of reverence, really, reverence would be a good synonym for what I'm talking about with devotion. When we understand the importance of this and how to access this is actually through teachers and beings that we admire. It could be from any walk of life, somebody who inspires you. The Buddha was free enough of vanity and egotism that he could encourage people to admire him and what he had achieved, the awakening that he achieved in his life. But we can also use, these figures, whether it's Jesus or Mother Mary or whatever tradition comes from, to the Torah, to awaken our hearts to feel some devotion. But when it's devotion toward a living being, I think it's wise to follow this advice from Seneca, who said, choose as a guide one who you will admire more, when you see them act than when you hear them speak. It's relatively easy to say beautiful things, but each one of us knows how hard it is to embody these things. I'm going to say it again. And I really feel blessed that I got to know a lot of my teachers well enough to see how they act and not just hear how they speak. And if you aren't that close to a teacher that you can actually observe them and watch them, you can still look at the tracks their life has left, and have, what kind of trail follows them. Choose as a guide one who you'll admire more when you see them act than when you hear them speak. And so I guess maybe I'm cautioning you about me, but I don't think most of you are doing any kind of guru worship here. We certainly don't encourage that. It's just common sense. Think of it as common sense directed toward, it's like harnessing our normal, the capacities that we all have, and just directing them toward what we love the most in our hearts. And when I say what I love the most, obviously I love my family. I love my beloved, wonderful husband, Jack. I love. I'm talking about what our hearts most long for, and sure, to love and be loved as human beings, to be known and hopefully appreciated and respected as human beings. And there's another longing, which is the hunger, the thirst that we address here, which is the longing of the heart to know that it is part of and belongs to something that is bigger and more majestic and magnificent and ever present, than what we often, the place where we're often dwelling in our everyday lives. And to feel that we can hold a space, with our meditation, with our mindfulness, however you practice, that we can hold a space for this. It's like making room, for making room for that which is holy, that which is sacred, to come and infuse our life. And mindfulness, another way where mindfulness and devotion intersect, is that with a little bit of mindfulness, we can appreciate, sure, not 24/7, not every single moment, more and more of the moments of our lives as sacred. And especially if or when you're grieving the loss of a loved one or some other part of your life, you realize, I realize it is a precious human birth. So this is really what I wanted to share with you this morning. And I saw that Caroline had her hand up earlier, but I was in the middle of a thought and I didn't address it. And Caroline is our moderator today, and it looks like she was probably telling me that she had to go and do something. So I'm hoping you can each unmute yourselves, or else that she made me host and I can. Oh, there she is. Hi. Thank you, Caroline. So this is now a time for us to have some dialogue, and oh, look at Sherry's kitty cat, and to share thoughts, reflections, questions from your practice, anything that you would like to share in relation to what we're doing here today. You can raise your hand with the reaction button at the bottom of the screen. To the right, you can wave wildly. We're a really small group today, so probably Caroline can see you if you wildly wave. Okay, I can see Liz is waving.
I see Liz, yeah.
Hi. I think it's wonderful that you did. Can you hear me? It's wonderful that you did your retreat.
Yeah.
Congratulations on doing that retreat. I just finished an online retreat, a hybrid retreat at Spirit Rock on awareness, which was really great because I'm not in shape to go on retreat anymore, and it was really quite wonderful to be part of the retreat and to see the shrine room while I was meditating. And I just want to say that teachers are so radically important for me. And they are so inspiring, especially the four that were there, on this retreat. Jack is enormously inspiring, but teachers inspire me enormously. And they're of personalities and devotion and inspiration that I never knew when I was younger. I never knew these kind of people. I didn't even know they existed. And then to come across the quality of these human beings is so, I'm using a Jewish word, which I don't like to do, kvelling. I'm kvelling. I'm just so enamored of them and so grateful to be around them.
Well, that's beautiful devotion, Liz. And
yes.
For people who may not speak, may not know Jewish words, that kvelling is one of my favorite words because it expresses a particular kind of pleasure, the pleasure you take, like when you take pride in someone or you take pride in something, but it's not a possessive or patronizing kind of pride. It's just like the pure love and pleasure of, say, your children playing when they're not fighting with each other, or
being thrilled.
Your own achievements too, like you just completed that retreat. Congratulations. And then and the accomplishments of the teachers who've worked hard to be where they are. All of that.
Wonderful.
All of that. Thank you. Yeah.
So
thanks, Liz.
I really suggest going on retreat. Makes a big difference for me.
It really does. And now that a lot of the retreats are either hybrid or still you can find plenty of online ones, it's much more accessible for people to be able to do than it used to be when we always had to travel and go someplace and pay all that money and so forth.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you.
You too. Caroline.
I have a quick question if no one else is going to share. Sorry, there might be a little background noise. But I was wondering, you were talking about some of the components that come together and you can integrate together in terms of like increasing your devotion. And I was just wondering if you could talk about some of the intersection of those, or if they come at different points, or if you can kind of explore them in whichever order.
Like, what is making you ask this question? I'm just curious where it's coming from in your experience.
I think I'm just curious about their intersection and like why it's this particular set of characteristics and practices. And then sometimes like some components are a little bit more accessible than others based on like your state of mind or where you're at. So definitely. I think that's where my question is coming from. It's also just some curiosity because I noticed we're a little quiet today.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, and you're always welcome to ask. You know, you're serving as moderator, you're volunteering for us, and I think the least we can offer you in return is that you get to ask questions too. So I'm really glad you did. And you're a junior. Is this your junior year you're finishing now, or you?
Yes, I'm finishing up my junior year.
Yeah. I was just looking at you and thinking, oh my gosh, my granddaughter is a sophomore. You just look a lot like her today because she wears her hair pulled back. So in terms of your question, yes, it's absolutely true that you're really right on that some states are more accessible to us at different points in our lives, depending on the context, depending on just where we're at in any given moment. You know, who just said what to us and all of those things. And so that's true. And also I teach these things because it's a way to convey the heart of the teaching, which is really about presence, love, and wise creativity or understanding, or both. And so don't get too hung up on trying to track exactly these 5 faculties in yourself. If it's fun for you to do it, but realize that they are always being strengthened and cultivated just by the fact that you meditate. That is the magic of meditation. The Buddha had a mind that was extremely well organized and put things into lists. And my friend Grove, the teacher who's a lawyer, said he must have been a lawyer. He must have been trained as a lawyer because he's just very, very precise. In the Zen tradition, for example, these kinds of teachings aren't usually given with such precision. The teachings are delivered more through stories. And so it can seem more austere, but even in Zen, there's a saying, you begin with Zen Buddhism and you wind up with Shin Buddhism. Shin Buddhism is a completely devotional practice of repeating the names of Amitabha, of one of the names of the Buddha, like a mantra. You know, it's a very different practice than just silent sitting. But the point is that even if you start with the simplicity that is not, say, devotional at all, if you keep going, these qualities will naturally flower in your heart. You'll just start to appreciate life and yourself and more, you know, and so it's going to happen if you keep meditating, but it's also fun and interesting, just like you're doing, to ask, well, you know, why this and not that? And how do we cultivate more of that and not this? And these are the questions of our practice when it's very alive. So thank you for asking. It's very alive.
Yeah, well, thank you for your answer. And right before we move on to Candace, I want to mention that this summer I'll be working with Dr. Rael Khan at the USC Center for Mindful Science, and we're doing some work with InsightLA, some research.
Fantastic. Oh, so I really like Rael so much. I like him so much. I'm so glad you'll be working together. I'm glad you told us. How many do you have papers, exams? Are you done?
So I finish up on around May 15th with exams, and then going to graduation festivities, and then I'll be home for a little, and I'll be back early June, late May to start research.
Great. Yeah. Congratulations for landing that internship or whatever it's called. That's great.
Oh, I'm so excited to do it.
Yeah, great. So I think Candace has her hand up. Candace?
I was muted. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Yeah,
maybe you didn't intend to put your hand up.
no, I did. You said something about we don't worship, but how I know when you're over in Maui and Ram Dass was very much into devotional, like kirtan, and what would be the difference there between we don't worship and I don't know his intense devotion to Neem Karoli Baba?
Yeah, and I think when I said that, I didn't clarify, so I'm glad you brought it up, Candace. I meant we don't place our trust or faith or confidence in this tradition outside of ourselves. It's more directed. It's like an inverse arrow directing into your own heart. And with the more devotional practices toward a guru, for example, it's more like a boomerang. So you take you take those qualities in your own heart and then you direct them to that devotional figure, because this is easier for some people. It's really according to our natures, and it's just easier for some people to feel worshipful and devoted to something. So then the arrow goes toward that, and then it inevitably, because you're cultivating those, you're using that worship, figure of worship, the guru or whoever, the deity, you're using that to strengthen those qualities in you. That's what's happening. And so it boomerangs back to you, back to your own heart. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you use the intermediary. That's really what it is. You use the intermediary to just strengthen it all, and then you're in it, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Did you do kirtan when you were there?
A little bit, but and I like kirtan, and I would have done more, but they have kirtan with a group, and I was trying to be more secluded, so that's why.
Okay.
But with the small household, they build a temple, a mandir. I don't know if I can share screen with my photos. Let me see. Oh, Caroline, can you let me screen share? I'm going to try and find a picture of the mandir. You have to make me a co-host.
Right, I think. So right now, Alan is the host. I'm the co-host, and so I can't give you privileges, but he can. So Alan Blackman, he's the host right now. If you could make me host and Trudy co-host, that would be really helpful.
Oh, Alan, thank you. Ruth Blackman, who happens to be married to Alan Blackman. Ruth Blackman was our volunteer coordinator at InsightLA for many, many years. She was amazing. And we could never have grown the way we did without Ruth's love and support. Okay, so you know what? I can describe it. I don't have to be, I don't have to screen share the pictures with you. Or I can do it another time. But
also, though, I have the screen sharing abilities because I'm co-host. So if you want me to look something up for you, I can totally do that.
No, it's my photos on my computer.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. It's just my photos. Yeah. Yeah. So they built a beautiful little temple, and it's very traditional. It has a mandala of like stained glass windows, and it was just such a labor of love. So many volunteers came and worked on it. People who loved and wanted to honor Ram Dass in this way, and it's just a beautiful space. And it has 3 altars that are the most ornate altars. Big statue of Hanuman and other deities, and it's just a very different kind. I don't know about you, most of us have a pretty simple altar, and maybe a photo of somebody that's passed away, maybe a Kuan Yin or a Buddha, or maybe just a flower, maybe a candle, whatever it might be. if you don't have an altar, I do recommend creating an altar. It's a lovely thing to have. It can just be the littlest shelf in your room. It doesn't have to be any big thing. But it's just an atmosphere where there's just lots of pictures of Neem Karoli Baba, who was Ram Dass's guru. And Ram Dass was very clear. He didn't want to be seen as a guru, and it was a very skillful way to work with transference and countertransference. He said, you know, let's pretend I'm Ram Dass. He says, you know, that is Neem Karoli Baba is the guru, you know, always above him and, you know, above him and supporting him. And he said, he's the fisherman. You all are the fish, and I'm the worm. And so that was the way that he presented himself. You know, I'm the worm. I'm that bait that draws you to God. Neem Karoli Baba being the personification. So it's just interesting to me, all these different ways of loving spirit, loving life, loving truth, and the various expressions in the world. And it's only a source of a kind of incomprehension and profound sadness that people fight each other over their different ways of worshiping life and appreciating this life. It's just the strangest thing and most unfortunate. It is a most unfortunate, not the most unfortunate. We have many meta crises vying to be the most important and the most, you know, and probably climate first of all. Anyway, that was a kind of long answer, but nobody had their hand up. Oh, good, Sherry, hi. And then, okay, good.
Yeah, so I wanted to tell you thank you again for your sharing of your process with grieving your brother, and it ties in, for me, it ties into knowing you and other teachers who are willing to be vulnerable and caring, and also like examples of like living a very loving way. And personally, I guess that something I'm struggling with, especially this week, is that the more I allow myself to feel compassion and tenderness, then something happens and I just get a reaction, like with someone who I interact with a lot, who's not exactly compassionate and caring and open. And I just lost it the other day, and I just reacted so much. And then, so now hearing all of these things that you were talking about today, the faculties, I start feeling like sad, but also kind of shamed and guilty, like, because part of the thing that happened was the other person said, well, you sound like you need some more mindfulness. So it's like,
oh, no. Don't you love it when the teachings are turned against you?
Dang, right in the gut, you know?
Yeah, but I've been there. Thank you.
It's just like, boom, like feeling defeat, and like there's this rogue wave that came out of somewhere, you know, but just to keep on the path and not let those not so great feelings pull me under. That's where I am right now.
Yeah, I think that, look, there's a couple things. First of all, these teachings and the Dharma in general, they're too beautiful to use to abuse or oppress yourself. You can use lots of other things, but don't use the teaching.
Okay, I like that. That sounds good.
I mean, it's really easy to do because the mind, you know, comparing mind that wants to, that, you know, Jack always talks about loyalty to your suffering, the comparing mind that wants to go into that rut of shame and self-blame and all of that. is always ready. It's like a demon that's ready to pounce, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, you kind of have to be on the lookout for that and able to recognize those feelings for what they are, which we would say the embodiment of, say, unawareness or evil. Unawareness is the source of evil in Buddhist psychology, is this figure called Mara, sort of like the devil. You know, and you have to be able to say, I see you, Mara, when you start to feel that shame creeping up, you know, the flesh of, yeah.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah. And then there was another piece to what you said that I just got so into Mara that I have the Mara of forgetting. You know, and as I was saying to Caroline, Sherry, these qualities will develop on their own. I mean, if you keep meditating, if you are sincere and you keep practicing, they will develop on their own. So we don't have to get too worried about remembering which ones they are and how do you cultivate this or that or the other thing. Just keep, you know, creating that sacred space within and being loyal to doing that, which is hard enough. You don't have to add remembering faculties to it. It's hard enough to just, you know, stay committed to that. Creating that space. And then the thing that I meant to say, the forgetting moment, was Sherry also is referring maybe to the fact that in the 10-day retreat, I posted each day what this grieving process was like. And it was posted by a young man. I could never have known how to do it on social media, along with some photos that we took. And you can access it. I just put in the chat. You can access it. I guess that's Instagram. I don't even know enough, but it's on Facebook too. And like I said, I could never have done it without Jason. So a shout out for Jason, who inspired me to share it. And I shared it for two reasons. I wanted to write a love letter to my brother, Jonathan. I wanted to destigmatize mental struggles and mental illness, which I talked about a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I think. And I also wanted to tenderize social media, because usually people are presenting, you know, your very cutest selfie and your very best vacation moment and, you know, stuff like that. And I wanted to say, well, we can also be real with each other and we can be vulnerable. And I have to say, nobody wrote a mean comment. There was only sweet comments that came, and except for my family, of course. But they were just like, from my granddaughter, Mom thinks it's weird that you posted a photo of yourself crying. And I do too. Or a cousin who called my sister, who definitely won't look, and said, Trudy's posting weird, bad things on social media. I mean, it's, you know, this is just different takes, but that's why I did it. And that's, and you can still look at it if you want. So thank you, Sherry and Meredith. You can be unmuted.
Oh, hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
I haven't looked at your opening up your process of grieving on Instagram yet, and just listening makes me really want to. And I love that what you just said about tenderizing the media, and also your family's responses. And it's just a different day, because I'm still kind of cringy around my family's responses. And I'm also a real tender person. And I love that you're talking about devotion. I really identify with being a devotional sort of person. And I find, I don't know where it came from. Well, it comes from my heart, but, and what do I want to say? How do I say this? I find over time that I've been devoted to sometimes quite self-destructive belief, but the devotion continues, you know, and now, and sometimes recognizing the depth and the confusion and the harm of the confused belief, and leaving it, grieving it. I personally take it all back to what I know of my childhood, but allowing that to be grieved, and also trusting, continuing to trust. And I'm in that space of transition, but you know, what isn't transition? But
well, everything's in transition all the time, Meredith, but what you're talking about is really important, which is being able to hold both in that inner space, you know, to create space to hold even opposites, and that they can both be true. There's still the old loyalty to the suffering, and there's also a devotion to yourself in the Dharma, and you can hold both. And that's beautiful.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you
So much.
Marilyn.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a big vote of confidence. You're right.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it is.
Hi, thanks for calling on me, Trudy. I thought it might be helpful for me to share with the others how I've used kind of visualization and devotion for about 25 years. Shortly after I retired, I remember talking with Shinzen, my main teacher, Shinzen Yang, about feeling kind of a presence walking with me. And I think it's because I was finally able to relax more, not being in this high pressure job so much. I was finally able to get out of my head. And he encouraged me to name the presence, try to visualize it, because he comes from the Shingon school of meditation in Japan. That's where he trained as a monk. And apparently that's one of their main techniques, is to eventually embody the avatar or the God or venerable one that they're imagining, to eventually embody that. So I decided to name my presence, who became kind of a guardian angel, Grace. And I would picture her as a Grecian goddess in long flowing robes. And even doing it now, I feel tremendous comfort in her presence, comfort and confidence. And she says to me, and this was again something that Shinzen suggested, that I also come up with a phrase that she repeats. And she says, I am with you always. I am with you always. I am with you always.
That's beautiful.
So I picture walking with this very tall woman at my back, kind of with her arms around my shoulders. And because she's so tall, she has long vision. She knows what's going on. And so she just kind of moves my shoulders in the right direction. And I can't tell you how helpful that's been over the years. Just incredibly helpful.
Yeah, beautiful.
So
thank you. That's beautiful.
Stuff works.
And we've talked usually in the context of loving kindness practice, of using your imagination and the importance of being able to use the imagination in our practice, and to imagine, people who love us or that we love, or, imagine things that gladden the heart, brighten the heart, that are of love. So I'm really glad you brought that forward, really glad. And I want to thank everybody for being here today and invite us to sit together for a moment. And after we close in a few minutes, there will be the breakout groups after a 10-minute bio break or whatever other kind of break you may need. And I encourage you to meet with others and to share your practice, because just talking about it actually makes it more real. It actualizes it in your life, I think, especially voicing your aspirations to others. You know, it makes them more real. It's like, I don't know, it strengthens the intention. So let's sit together for a moment or two. Whenever we've had a chance to study and practice together. And it's good to do this on your own too, when you're practicing at home. Coming together to a sitting group is like a kind of festive celebration of your daily practice, or almost daily practice that you aspire to. It's good to just express our appreciation, gratitude for the blessings of this practice by paying them forward in a way. We offer the goodness of our practice to all beings everywhere without exception. Just sharing the blessings of wishing for ourselves, for each other, for all beings may be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May you be happy. May you have happiness and the causes of happiness. And we really study together the causes of both suffering and happiness, and incline our hearts. May all beings everywhere incline our hearts toward that which brings happiness. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your practice, your presence. Have a wonderful week. I love you all for doing this. And you can unmute everybody so you can say hi, goodbye.
Hi, goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, and
Thank you, Trudy.
I want to show you my sweatshirt.
Oh.
Can you see?
Oh,
that's
I want one. I
it
want
does. It does.
It's true. It's true.
right on.
Yes.
And if you don't have an ocean nearby, if you're in Dallas or someplace, just randomly mentioning Dallas, Fred, if you don't have an ocean nearby, you can use your tears. Tears are very healing. So, thank you, everybody. Bye.
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 Enjoy your ocean.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Be well. Happy.
Bernard.
Hi
Hello?
everyone. So for breakout rooms,